Clara Dawson pressed her palm against the hideous scar beneath her dress and whispered the lie she'd been rehearsing for 6 months. I am whole. I am enough. I am not broken. The train whistle screamed. Montana waited outside that frosted window, and so did a rancher who expected a wife who could give him children. She couldn't give him anything except secrets and shame. But 5 orphans were starving in that blizzard, and Clara would rather die in a lie than let them die without a mother. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from, and if this story touches your heart, subscribe now. You won't want to miss what happens next. Clara Dawson's fingers trembled as she clutched the worn letter against her chest. The paper had been folded and unfolded so many times that the creases had worn thin, threatening to tear apart at any moment. Just like her. The train lurched violently, and Clara grabbed the seat in front of her to steady herself. Through the frost-covered window, she could barely make out the shapes of snow-covered mountains rising like white giants against a steel-gray sky. Montana Territory, December 1889. She was going to marry a stranger. No, she was going to deceive a stranger into marrying her. Clara closed her eyes and pressed her hand against her abdomen, feeling the raised ridge of the scar that ran from her navel to her hip bone. The scar that told the story of her ruination. The scar that Frederick Ashworth III had called grotesque before he walked out of her life forever. "You all right, miss?" Clara's eyes snapped open. An elderly woman across the aisle was peering at her with concern. "You've gone white as milk." "I'm fine." Clara forced a smile. "Just tired from the journey." "Long way from wherever you came from, I reckon." The woman's eyes were sharp despite her age. "Philadelphia by the sound of your accent. Fancy lady like you heading to Silver Creek must be one of them mail-order situations." Clara's stomach clenched. "Yes, ma'am." The woman's expression was unreadable. "Hope you know what you're getting into. Montana winters ain't kind to soft eastern women. Neither are Montana men sometimes." "I'm stronger than I look." The old woman studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Maybe you are. Maybe you are." The train began to slow, and the conductor's voice rang through the car. "Silver Creek. Next stop, Silver Creek." Clara gathered her single worn carpet bag, all that remained of her former life, and stood on shaking legs. Through the window, she could see a small platform emerging from the swirling snow. A cluster of wooden buildings huddled together against the wind, and standing on the platform, a tall figure in a snow-dusted coat, holding the hands of 2 small children. Her future husband. Her victim. Clara pressed her palm flat against her scar one final time. "Forgive me," she whispered to no one. "Forgive me for what I'm about to do." Samuel Holloway had been standing on that platform for 45 minutes, and his boots had gone numb 10 minutes ago. Beside him, 6-year-old Will clutched his pant leg with one hand, and his ragged stuffed rabbit with the other, silent as always. On his other side, 4-year-old Rose bounced on her toes despite the cold, her golden curls escaping from beneath her woolen cap. "Is she coming? Uncle Sam, is the lady coming? Will she be nice? Will she like me? What if she don't like me?" "She'll like you just fine, Rosie." Sam's voice came out rougher than he intended. He cleared his throat. "She'll like all of you." God let that be true. The train appeared through the snow like a great iron beast belching steam and grinding to a halt with a screech of metal on metal. Sam's heart hammered against his ribs. In a moment, he would meet the woman he'd agreed to marry. The woman who would help him raise his dead brother's children. The woman who would share his home, his name, his life. A stranger. He'd been a fool to do this. A desperate, grieving fool. But what choice did he have? Abby was 15 years old, trying to be a mother to 4 younger siblings while also running a household and helping with ranch work. Ben had retreated so far into his books that Sam sometimes wondered if the boy would ever come back out. Lottie was angry at everything and everyone. Will hadn't spoken a complete sentence in 2 years. And Rose, sweet Rose, was the only one who still seemed to believe that life could be good. He couldn't do this alone anymore. He'd tried for 2 years and he was failing them. All of them. The train doors opened and passengers began to emerge. A traveling salesman with a sample case. A young couple with a baby. An old woman who shuffled past muttering about fool Eastern women. And then she appeared. Clara Dawson stepped onto the platform, and Sam felt something shift in his chest. She wasn't what he'd expected. Her letters had been formal, proper, carefully composed. He'd imagined a prim schoolmarm type, buttoned up tight with disapproval. But the woman standing before him looked fragile, haunted, beautiful in a way that made him immediately uncomfortable. Her dark hair was escaping from its pins whipped by the wind into wild tendrils around a face that was too thin, too pale. Her hazel eyes were enormous in that gaunt face, and they held an expression that Sam recognized. Fear. This woman was terrified. Of what? Of him. Of Montana. Of the life she'd agreed to. Miss Dawson. He stepped forward, removing his hat despite the snow. I'm Samuel Holloway. Her eyes met his, and for a moment something raw and desperate flickered across her face before she composed herself. Mr. Holloway. Her voice was steadier than he'd expected. Thank you for meeting me. Wouldn't have it any other way, ma'am. He gestured awkwardly to the children at his side. This here's Will and Rose. The others are back at the ranch, couldn't fit everyone in the wagon. Rose immediately broke free from Sam's hand and rushed toward Clara, her face alight with excitement. Are you gonna be our new mama? Uncle Sam said you might be our new mama. I asked God for a mama every single night, and now you're here. Sam watched Clara's face carefully. He saw the flash of pain quickly hidden before she knelt down in the snow to bring herself to Rose's level. Hello, Rose. Her voice was gentle, warm. What beautiful curls you have, like sunshine. Rose beamed and threw her arms around Clara's neck. I like you already. You smell nice like flowers. Over Rose's shoulder, Clara's eyes met Sam's again. He saw tears gathering there, though she blinked them back fiercely. The wagon's this way, Sam said gruffly, uncomfortable with the emotion thick in the air. Storm's getting worse. We need to head out before the road becomes impassable. Clara rose, keeping hold of Rose's small hand. She looked down at Will, who was hiding behind Sam's leg, and peering at her with huge, solemn eyes. Hello, Will, she said softly. That's a fine rabbit you have there. Does he have a name? Will's mouth opened, then closed. He looked up at Sam with something like panic in his eyes. Will don't talk much, Sam said quickly. Not for a while now. Clara nodded slowly, something shifting in her expression. That's all right. Sometimes words are hard. When you're ready, I'll be here to listen. Will stared at her for a long moment. Then so slightly that Sam almost missed it, he nodded. Sam felt something loosen in his chest. In 2 years, Will had never responded to a stranger, not once. Let's go, he said, his voice rougher than before. Long ride ahead. The wagon ride to the Holloway Ranch took nearly 2 hours through deepening snow. Sam kept his eyes on the road, his hands steady on the reins, while Clara sat beside him wrapped in a borrowed blanket. Rose had fallen asleep against Clara's side, and Will sat rigid and silent on her other side, clutching his rabbit. Your letters mentioned 5 children, Clara said during a lull in the wind. Will and Rose and 3 others? Abby's 15, practically runs the household. Ben's 12, quiet boy, always reading. And Lottie's 9. Sam paused. She's got a temper. Lost her folks young. Takes it out on the world. I understand. Something in her tone made Sam glance at her. Do you... Clara's jaw tightened. I understand anger. I understand what it feels like when the world takes everything from you and expects you to smile anyway." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. "Your letters," Sam said slowly. "They mentioned you'd been engaged before, back in Philadelphia." Clara's whole body went rigid. "Yes." "Didn't work out." "No." The word was clipped final. "It didn't work out." Sam waited, but she offered nothing more. He didn't push. Everyone had secrets. Everyone had pain they didn't want to share. He, of all people, understood that. "I should tell you about my brother," he said instead. "Daniel. He built the ranch, built the house, built everything good about our life here. When he died..." Sam's throat tightened. "When he and Martha died, I didn't know how to breathe for a while. Still don't some days." Clara turned to look at him, her expression softening. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Life takes. That's what it does. Only thing we can control is what we do after." He met her eyes briefly before returning his attention to the road. "I ain't looking for love, Miss Dawson. I ain't looking for romance or pretty words or any of that. I'm looking for a partner, someone to help me raise these children, to give them a mother figure to help them heal. That's all I'm asking." "And what are you offering in return?" "A home, a name, protection, respect." He paused. "I won't ask anything of you that you ain't willing to give. This can be a partnership in name only if that's what you want. I'll sleep in the barn if it makes you more comfortable. But those children need a mother, and I need help. That's the plain truth of it." Clara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible above the wind. "I need to tell you something, Mr. Holloway." Sam's hands tightened on the reins. Here it comes, he thought. Whatever secret she's been hiding, whatever truth made her flee Philadelphia and agree to marry a stranger 2,000 miles away. The reason my engagement ended. Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam. A small figure was running through the snow toward them, red hair flying, wild coat, unbuttoned despite the cold. Lottie. Sam pulled the wagon to a halt just as Lottie reached them, her face flushed and frantic. "It's Ben! He fell through the ice on Miller's Pond. He's hurt bad, Uncle Sam, real bad." Sam was off the wagon before Lottie finished speaking. "Where is he?" "Abby dragged him out. They're in the barn. She sent me to get you." Lottie's eyes were huge with fear, her earlier anger completely dissolved. "There's so much blood, Uncle Sam, so much blood." Clara was already climbing down from the wagon, lifting Rose carefully and passing her to Sam. "Take the children inside. Show me where the barn is." Sam stared at her. I worked in my father's apothecary for 10 years." Clara's voice was steady, commanding, completely different from the fragile woman who'd stepped off the train. "I know how to treat wounds. Show me where he is, now." For a fraction of a second, Sam hesitated, then he nodded. "Lottie, take Rose and Will inside. Keep them warm. Don't let them come to the barn." "But..." "Now, Charlotte." Lottie grabbed Rose's hand and took Will's arm, pulling them toward the house. Sam handed Clara the medical kit he kept under the wagon seat. Every rancher in Montana kept one, and ran. The barn was warmer than outside, but still bitterly cold. Sam found Abby kneeling beside her brother on a pile of hay, her hands pressed against a wound on his head that was bleeding freely. Ben was conscious, but dazed, his lips blue, and his whole body shaking violently. "Uncle Sam." Abby's face crumpled with relief. "I tried to stop the bleeding, but it won't stop. And he's so cold, and I didn't know what to do." "Move aside." Clara dropped to her knees beside Ben, her hands already moving with practiced efficiency. She examined the head wound, checked his pupils, felt along his limbs for breaks. "He's hypothermic. We need to get him warm gradually. Too fast and his heart could stop. Do you have blankets?" "Warm water." "In the house," Sam said. "Get them, all of them, and heat water warm, not hot. We need to raise his core temperature slowly." Clara was already stripping off her coat and tucking it around Ben's torso. "You? Abby, is it? Help me get his wet clothes off." Abby hesitated, looking at Sam. "Do what she says," Sam ordered and ran for the house, when he returned with armfuls of blankets and a pot of warm water. Clara had transformed the barn into a makeshift hospital. Ben's wet clothes were in a pile nearby, and he was wrapped in Clara's coat and several horse blankets. Abby was holding a cloth against his head wound, while Clara examined it more closely by lamplight. "The cut is deep, but clean," Clara reported. "It needs stitches. Do you have needle and thread?" "In the house. Martha's sewing kit." "Get it, and whiskey if you have any. For sterilization, not drinking." Sam retrieved the supplies while Clara continued working. She cleaned the wound with whiskey-soaked cloth, ignoring Ben's whimpers of pain. Her hands were steady, her movements precise. This was not a woman who had merely worked in an apothecary. This was someone with real medical training. "Hold him still," Clara instructed. "This will hurt." Sam braced Ben's shoulders while Clara began stitching the wound closed. Ben cried out once, then gritted his teeth and fell silent, his young face pale with pain and determination. "You're brave," Clara murmured as she worked. "Very brave. Almost done. Just a few more." When she finished, she tied off the thread and sat back on her heels. Ben's color was already improving, his shaking beginning to subside. "He'll need to be watched through the night," Clara said. "Wake him every 2 hours to make sure there's no deeper damage from the head injury. Keep him warm but not hot. Small sips of water when he can manage them." Sam stared at her. "Where did you learn to do that?" Clara's expression flickered. There it was again, that flash of pain and fear, before she schooled her features into neutrality. "My father was an apothecary. I assisted him for many years." "That wasn't just assisting. Those stitches were perfect. You've done this before." Clara rose to her feet, brushing hay from her skirt. "I've done many things before, Mr. Holloway. Some of them I'd rather not discuss." Their eyes met and held. Sam saw walls going up behind those hazel eyes, saw her retreating back into whatever shell she'd constructed to protect herself. He wanted to push, wanted to demand answers. But Ben was injured and the other children were scared, and there was a blizzard howling outside their door. "We'll talk later," he said quietly. "About whatever it is you're hiding." Clara flinched as if he'd struck her. "I'm not—" "You are. I ain't stupid, Miss Dawson. But right now, it don't matter. Right now, you just saved my nephew's life, and that's enough." He reached out and took her hand, squeezing it briefly. "Thank you." Clara's composure cracked for just a moment. Her lower lip trembled, and her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You're welcome," she whispered. The farmhouse was warm and crowded with children when they finally brought Ben inside. Abby had prepared the sofa with blankets and pillows, and they settled Ben there by the fire. Rose immediately climbed up beside him, patting his face with her small hand. "Poor Benny. Does it hurt? I can kiss it better." "I'm okay, Rosie." Ben's voice was weak but steady. "Just tired." Sam stood in the doorway, watching Clara move through his home like she belonged there. She was checking on Will, who had retreated to a corner with his rabbit. She was answering Lottie's rapid-fire questions about the medical procedure. She was accepting a cup of tea from Abby with a gracious smile. She fit. That was the thought that kept circling through Sam's mind. This woman, this stranger with her secrets and her scars and her haunted eyes, she fit into the spaces his family had been missing for 2 years. "Uncle Sam?" Abby appeared at his elbow, her voice low. Is she staying?" Sam looked at his niece, this girl who had grown up too fast, who had sacrificed her childhood to keep her siblings fed and clothed and alive. There was hope in her eyes, hope and fear in equal measure. "I don't know yet," he answered honestly. "We'll see." Abby nodded slowly. She knew what to do. With Ben. She didn't panic, didn't hesitate. She just knew. Yeah, she did. Mama would have liked her. Abby's voice cracked on the word Mama. I think Mama sent her to us. Sam pulled his niece into a rough embrace, holding her tight against his chest. Maybe she did, sweetheart. Maybe she did. It was past midnight when the house finally fell quiet. The children were asleep. Ben on the sofa by the fire. Rose curled up beside him. Will in his bed, clutching his rabbit Lottie in her room after demanding 3 separate assurances that Ben would be fine, and Abby in the rocking chair by Ben's side, refusing to leave her brother. Sam found Clara on the front porch wrapped in a blanket, staring out at the snow-covered world. "You'll freeze out here," he said, stepping up beside her. "I needed air." Her voice was distant hollow. "It's beautiful. The snow. In Philadelphia, it just turns to gray slush immediately. Here, it's actually white." Sam leaned against the porch railing, studying her profile in the dim light. "You want to tell me now what you've been hiding?" Clara was silent for so long that Sam thought she might not answer. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I can't give you children." Sam frowned. "I've got 5 children already. Told you I ain't looking for more." "No, you don't understand." Clara turned to face him, and he saw tears streaming down her cheeks, frozen into crystal tracks on her pale skin. "I'm barren, Mr. Holloway. I can never bear children. There was an accident. A carriage accident 3 years ago. They had to operate to save my life, and afterwards the doctor said—" She pressed her hand against her stomach. "I'm broken, damaged, worthless as a wife." Sam stared at her. "Is that why your engagement ended?" "Frederick said he needed a wife who could give him heirs. He said I was—" Her voice broke. "He said I was damaged goods. Grotesque. His family told everyone I had moral failings, that I was unfit for polite society. My mother died of shame. My father couldn't bear to look at me. So I ran." "You ran to Montana." "I ran anywhere that wasn't Philadelphia. Anywhere that didn't know what I was." Clara laughed bitterly. "And here I am doing exactly what I swore I wouldn't. Deceiving a good man into marrying me. Letting you believe I was something I'm not." Sam was quiet for a long moment, processing her words. This woman, this beautiful, capable, haunted woman, had been carrying this burden alone for 3 years. Had been told she was worthless, damaged, grotesque. Had fled her entire life because of something completely beyond her control. "Miss Dawson." "Please." Her voice cracked. "Please don't call me that. Just say what you're going to say. Tell me I have to leave. Tell me you're disgusted. I deserve it. I do. I should have told you from the beginning, but I was so desperate and I thought maybe—" "Clara." She stopped, startled by the use of her first name. Sam reached out and took her hand. It was ice-cold trembling. "Look at me." She raised her eyes to his, and he saw a woman bracing for another blow. A woman who fully expected to be rejected, dismissed, thrown away. "I lost my wife in childbirth," he said quietly. "Lydia. We were married 3 years. She got pregnant and everything was fine until it wasn't. The baby came too early and there was so much blood." He stopped, swallowed hard. "They both died. My wife and my son. In my arms because there was no doctor within 50 miles who could help them." Clara's hand tightened on his. "When Daniel and Martha died and I suddenly had 5 children depending on me, I thought maybe God was punishing me. For surviving when Lydia didn't. For not being able to save her." Sam's voice was rough with emotion. "But watching those children, watching them hurt and grieve and still find ways to smile, I realized something. Family ain't about blood. It ain't about who gave birth to who. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves them even when it's hard." Clara's tears were falling freely now, dripping off her chin and freezing in the night air. "You saved Ben's life tonight," Sam continued. "You didn't hesitate, didn't panic, didn't run away. You saw a child in need and you helped him. That's what a mother does. That's all that matters. But I can't. I already have 5 children who need a mother. 5 children who need someone to love them, teach them, help them heal. What they need isn't someone who can bear more children. It's someone who can love the ones we've got. Clara stared at him, her expression caught between hope and disbelief. You don't care that I'm broken. Sam shook his head slowly. Lady, we're all broken out here. Every single one of us is carrying scars and secrets and pain we don't want to talk about. That don't make us damaged goods. That makes us human. Clara let out a sob, a raw, wrenching sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her. And then she was crying in earnest, great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. Sam didn't know what to do. He'd never been good with tears, with emotions, with any of the soft things that women seem to need. But he couldn't just stand there and watch her fall apart. He pulled her into his arms. She stiffened for a moment, then collapsed against his chest, her fingers clutching the front of his coat like it was the only thing keeping her from drowning. He held her while she cried, her tears soaking through his shirt, her body trembling with the force of years of suppressed grief and shame finally breaking free. "I'm sorry," she gasped between sobs. "I'm so sorry. I should have told you. I should have—" "Shh." Sam stroked her hair awkwardly, feeling clumsy and inadequate. "It's done. It's over. We move forward from here." "But what if the children need a mother who loves them? Nothing else matters." Clara pulled back slightly, looking up at him with red-rimmed eyes and tear-streaked cheeks. She looked wrecked, destroyed, and somehow inexplicably more beautiful than she had on the train platform. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you still want me after everything I just told you?" Sam considered the question seriously before answering. "Because you're the first person Will has responded to in 2 years. Because you saved Ben's life without a moment's hesitation. Because Rose already loves you. Because I see the way you look at these children like they matter, like they're worth something, and that's what they need more than anything else in the world." He released her and stepped back, giving her space to breathe. "I ain't saying this will be easy. We don't know each other. We're strangers making promises neither of us fully understands. But I'm willing to try, if you are." Clara wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, a gesture so childlike and vulnerable that it made Sam's chest ache. "Even knowing what I am, I know what you are." Sam's voice was firm. "You're a woman who traveled 2,000 miles into the unknown because you refused to give up. You're someone who faces hard truths head-on instead of hiding from them. You're brave and capable and kind, and any man who couldn't see that is a damn fool." Clara let out a shaky laugh, half sob, half genuine amusement. "You don't know me. I know enough, and I'm willing to learn the rest." For a long moment Clara just looked at him. The snow fell around them in thick, silent curtains. The wind had died down, leaving an almost sacred stillness. And somewhere inside that cramped farmhouse, 5 children slept, dreaming whatever dreams orphaned children dream. "All right," Clara said finally. "All right. I'll try." Sam nodded. "That's all I'm asking." He turned to go inside, then paused at the door. "Miss Dawson. Clara, there's one thing I should tell you." "What's that?" "That fancy doctor in Philadelphia who told you that you were damaged goods." Clara tensed. "Yes." Sam's expression was hard, his eyes glinting with something close to anger. "He was wrong. About all of it. You're not broken. You're not grotesque. You're not worthless." He held her gaze steadily. "And if I ever meet Frederick Ashworth, I'll break his jaw for making you believe you were." He went inside before she could respond, leaving Clara alone on the porch with the snow and the stars, and the first fragile threads of hope she'd felt in 3 long years. Inside the warm farmhouse, with 5 sleeping children and a future she hadn't dared to imagine, Clara Dawson pressed her hand against the scar she'd been hiding for so long, and whispered words she hadn't spoken since she was a child. "Thank you." She didn't know if she was thanking God or fate, or simply the strange circumstances that had brought her to this remote Montana ranch in the middle of a blizzard. But for the first time since that terrible day in the doctor's office, she felt something other than shame. She felt like maybe, just maybe, she had found a place where she could finally belong. The wedding took place 3 days later in the front parlor of the Holloway farmhouse, with preacher Josiah Moore officiating, and all 5 children standing witness. Clara wore a simple blue dress that Abby had helped her alter from one of Martha's old gowns, and Sam wore his Sunday best, which was really just a cleaner version of his everyday clothes. Rose threw dried flower petals she'd been saving since summer, most of which landed on Will's head instead of the floor. Lottie stood with her arms crossed, watching Clara with suspicious eyes that hadn't softened since the night of Ben's accident. Ben sat propped up on the sofa, still pale, but recovering well, a bandage wrapped around his head like a badge of honor. And Abby stood slightly apart from the others, her expression unreadable as she watched her uncle marry a woman they'd known for less than a week. "Do you, Samuel William Holloway, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Sam's voice was steady. "I do." "And do you, Clara Elizabeth Dawson, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Clara looked at Sam, then at the 5 children who would become hers in the eyes of the law, if not yet in their hearts. Her voice came out stronger than she expected. "I do." "Then, by the power vested in me by the Montana Territory, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Preacher Moore smiled kindly. "You may kiss your bride." Sam leaned in and pressed a brief, chaste kiss to Clara's cheek. It was awkward perfunctory, exactly what their arrangement called for. But when he pulled back, Clara saw something in his eyes that surprised her. Warmth. Real warmth. Rose immediately launched herself at Clara, wrapping her small arms around Clara's legs. "Now you're our mama for real and forever." Clara knelt down and gathered Rose into her arms, breathing in the sweet smell of her golden curls. "For real and forever," she whispered. Over Rose's shoulder she caught Lottie's eye. The 9-year-old's expression had shifted from suspicious to something more complex, something that looked almost like hope fighting against fear. "Don't think this changes anything," Lottie said sharply. "You ain't my real mama. You're just some stranger Uncle Sam bought from a newspaper." "Charlotte." Sam's voice carried a warning. "It's all right." Clara set Rose down gently and straightened to face Lottie directly. "You're right. I'm not your real mama, and I never will be. Your real mama loved you more than anything in the world, and no one can ever replace her." Lottie's lower lip trembled slightly before she firmed it. "Then what are you?" Clara considered the question carefully. "I'm someone who wants to take care of you. Someone who will be here when you need help or comfort, or even someone to be angry at. I'm not trying to replace your mother, Lottie. I'm just trying to be here. That's all." For a long moment, Lottie stared at her with those fierce green eyes. Then she turned and walked out of the room without another word, her footsteps heavy on the wooden stairs. Sam sighed. "She'll come around, eventually." "I know." Clara watched the empty doorway where Lottie had disappeared. "She's testing me, waiting to see if I'll leave like everyone else did." Sam gave her a sharp look. "You understand that?" "Better than you know." The reception was simple, just cake that Abby had baked and coffee that was slightly burnt but hot. The neighbors who had been invited, the Crawfords and the Brennans and old Jacob Moreno, offered their congratulations with varying degrees of sincerity. Helen Crawford's smile didn't reach her eyes, and her questions about Clara's background felt more like interrogation than conversation. "Philadelphia, you said. How fascinating. What did your family do there?" "My father was an apothecary." Clara kept her voice pleasant, her expression neutral. "An apothecary? How quaint." Helen's smile sharpened. "And your mother's family?" "My mother passed away recently." "Oh, I'm so sorry." Helen's tone suggested she wasn't sorry at all. It must have been quite a scandal, a proper Philadelphia girl running off to marry a stranger in Montana. Whatever drove you to such desperation? Clara felt Sam tense beside her, but before he could speak, she answered smoothly. I wanted a fresh start, Mrs. Crawford. Sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is leave behind everything familiar and build something new. Helen's eyes narrowed slightly. Indeed. Well, I do hope you know what you've gotten yourself into. Ranch life isn't for the faint of heart, especially not for city women. I'm stronger than I look. We'll see about that, won't we? After the guests left, Clara helped Abby clean up while Sam took the younger children upstairs for bed. They worked in companionable silence for a while, washing dishes and putting away leftover cake until Abby finally spoke. Mrs. Crawford doesn't like you. Clara smiled slightly. I noticed. She wanted Uncle Sam to marry her niece, Elizabeth. She's been pushing for it ever since Aunt Martha died. Abby scrubbed a plate with more force than necessary. Elizabeth's pretty and comes from money, and Mrs. Crawford thinks Uncle Sam should have picked her instead of some stranger from a newspaper. I see. Clara filed this information away carefully. And what do you think? Abby was quiet for a moment. I think Elizabeth would have hated it here. She doesn't like children, doesn't like dirt, doesn't like anything that isn't fancy and expensive. She glanced at Clara sideways. You're different. You didn't mind getting your hands dirty to help Ben. You didn't complain about the cold or the house or any of it. There's nothing to complain about. This is a good home. It's not Philadelphia. Clara set down the dish she was drying and turned to face Abby fully. Philadelphia was never my home. Not really. It was just a place I lived while I waited for my real life to begin. Abby studied her with eyes too old for her 15 years. And this is your real life, here with us? I hope so, if you'll have me. Something shifted in Abby's expression. The wariness that had been there since Clara's arrival softened just slightly. Ben likes you. Rose adores you. Will actually looked at you, which is more than he's done with anyone since Mama and Papa died. Even Lottie, she's just scared. She'll come around. And you? Abby was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched Clara's hand briefly. You saved my brother's life. That counts for something. She paused. Just don't leave. Don't make them love you and then leave. That would be worse than never coming at all. Clara's throat tightened. I won't leave. I promise. Don't promise. Abby's voice was hard bitter. Promises don't mean anything. Mama promised she'd always be here, and then she died. Papa promised he'd take care of us forever, and then he died too. People make promises they can't keep all the time. You're right. Clara nodded slowly. I can't promise I won't die. No one can promise that. But I can promise that I will never choose to leave you. I will never walk away because things get hard, or because I find something better, or because I get tired of being here. As long as I have breath in my body, I will stay. Abby stared at her, searching her face for any sign of deception. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she nodded once sharply. Okay then. It wasn't acceptance, not quite. But it was a start. The first weeks of Clara's new life fell into a rhythm that was exhausting, but satisfying. She rose before dawn to help with breakfast, spent her days learning the endless tasks required to run a frontier household, and fell into bed each night too tired to think about the secrets she was still keeping. Because despite what she had told Sam about her barrenness, there were other things she hadn't mentioned. The scar that ran across her abdomen, for one. The fact that Frederick hadn't just broken their engagement. He had publicly humiliated her, spreading rumors that painted her as everything from a fortune hunter to something far worse. The letters she still received from her father's sister in Baltimore, begging her to come home and face the scandal like a proper lady. None of these things mattered in the daily reality of life on the Holloway Ranch. What mattered was making sure Will ate his breakfast, convincing Lottie to do her schoolwork, helping Ben regain his strength after the accident, teaching Rose her letters, and supporting Abby as she slowly began to relinquish some of the burdens she had carried alone for too long. What mattered was the way Sam looked at her across the breakfast table, with respect and something that might be growing into affection. The way he always made sure her coffee cup was full, always asked her opinion on household matters, always treated her like a partner rather than a servant. They had agreed to a marriage of convenience, nothing more. Sam slept in the barn, as he had promised, giving Clara the bedroom they would have shared. It was proper, appropriate, exactly what she should want. So why did she find herself watching for him through the window each evening, waiting for him to return from the fields? Why did her heart skip when their hands accidentally touched, reaching for the same dish? Why did she lie awake at night thinking about the brief chaste kiss he had pressed to her cheek on their wedding day? Stop it, she told herself firmly. You're here to take care of the children, nothing more. But the heart, she was learning, didn't always listen to reason. 3 weeks after the wedding, the first real crisis hit. Clara was in the kitchen preparing supper when she heard Rose screaming from the yard. Not the playful shriek of a child at play, but a sound of genuine terror that made Clara's blood run cold. She ran outside without even grabbing her coat, her feet pounding across the frozen ground toward the sound. She found Rose standing by the chicken coop, her small body rigid with shock, pointing at something behind the building. "Mama! Mama, come quick!" It was the first time Rose had called her Mama without adding Clara to the end. The significance of that barely registered before. Clara rounded the corner of the coop and stopped dead. Will was lying face down in the snow, completely still. His rabbit lay a few feet away, one button eye staring up at the gray sky. Clara dropped to her knees beside him, her heart hammering. Please, God. Please, not again. Please. She turned him over carefully, checking for breath, for pulse, for any sign of life. His skin was cold, but not frozen, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. He was alive, but something was wrong. His eyes were open, but unfocused, staring at nothing, and his body was rigid with a tension that spoke of something more than physical injury. Will. Clara kept her voice calm despite her terror. Will, can you hear me? It's Clara. You're safe. I need you to look at me. Nothing. No response at all. Rose was crying now. Great hiccuping sobs that cut through the cold air. Is he dead? Is Will dead? Please don't let him be dead. He's not dead, sweetheart. He's having a hard time right now. I need you to be very brave and run inside. Find Abby. Tell her to come quickly. Rose hesitated, her small face torn between fear and obedience. Go, Rose. Now. I'll take care of Will. Rose ran her small legs churning through the snow. Clara turned her attention back to Will, stroking his hair, gently murmuring words of comfort, even though she wasn't sure he could hear them. You're safe, Will. Whatever happened, whatever scared you, it's over now. You're safe, and I'm here, and I'm not going to leave you. Slowly, gradually, she felt the tension begin to leave his small body. His eyes started to focus, finding her face with an expression of confusion, and then unmistakably relief. There you are. Clara smiled at him, keeping her voice soft. There you are. Can you tell me what happened? Will's mouth opened, and for a moment Clara thought he might actually speak. But then his face crumpled, and instead of words, a sob escaped him. He lunged forward and wrapped his arms around Clara's neck, burying his face against her shoulder and crying with an intensity that shook his entire body. Clara held him, rocking slightly back and forth, letting him cry out whatever had been trapped inside him for so long. She didn't ask questions, didn't try to make him talk, just held him and let him feel safe. That was how Sam found them a few minutes later, having come running from the barn at Rose's frantic summons. He stopped short at the sight of Clara kneeling in the snow, with Will wrapped around her like a second skin. What happened? I don't know. Clara looked up at him over Will's head. Rose found him like this, just lying in the snow. He wasn't hurt physically, but something triggered, I don't know what to call it, some kind of episode. Sam's expression darkened with understanding. This happened before. Right after Daniel and Martha died, the doctor called them spells, said they were caused by the shock of losing his parents. Has he seen anyone about them? A specialist? Nearest specialist is in Denver. 8 hours by train in good weather, impossible in winter. Sam's voice was heavy with frustration and guilt. I've been meaning to take him, but there's never been time, and the ranch can't run itself, and... He trailed off, running a hand through his hair in a gesture Clara was beginning to recognize as his response to overwhelming stress. It's not your fault. Clara's voice was firm. You've done everything you could for these children, more than most men would have done. It ain't enough. Sam knelt down beside them, his hand coming to rest on Will's back. Hey, little man, you okay? Will didn't respond except to burrow deeper into Clara's arms. Sam's jaw tightened. He used to talk to me. Before, he used to follow me everywhere, chattering about everything he saw. Drove me crazy sometimes, all that noise. His voice cracked slightly. I'd give anything to hear him chatter now. Clara made a decision in that moment, one that would change everything. There was a doctor in Philadelphia, she said slowly. A woman. Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She specialized in treating children who had experienced trauma. I met her through my father's work. Sam looked at her sharply. A woman doctor? Yes, and before you say anything, she was brilliant. One of the most skilled physicians I've ever known, and I've known a few. Clara paused. She taught me some techniques for helping children like Will. Children who had been so hurt by the world that they forgot how to speak. Why didn't you mention this before? Because I didn't know if you would accept it. Because I didn't know if you would accept me knowing it. Clara met his eyes directly. I know more about medicine than I told you, Sam. My father didn't just run an apothecary. He was a trained physician who lost his license after something happened. He taught me everything he knew. I've stitched wounds, set bones, delivered babies. I've done things that would make most proper ladies faint. Sam stared at her for a long moment. Why didn't you tell me? Because proper ladies don't know how to do those things. Because I was afraid you would think I was strange or improper or worse. She laughed bitterly. I've spent so long hiding who I really am that I almost forgot there was anything worth showing. Sam was quiet for a moment. Then he did something that surprised her completely. He laughed. It wasn't mocking or cruel. It was genuine warm laughter that crinkled the corners of his eyes and transformed his usually serious face. Woman, do you have any idea how valuable those skills are out here? We've got one doctor for 100 miles and he's drunk half the time. If you can do half of what you're claiming, you're worth more than gold. Clara blinked at him. You're not scandalized. Scandalized. Sam shook his head in disbelief. Lady, you saved Ben's life. You're sitting in the snow holding my nephew like he's the most precious thing in the world. You've got skills that could help people in this territory who desperately need help. Why in God's name would I be scandalized? Clara felt tears prickling at her eyes. Frederick said, Frederick was a damn fool. Sam's voice was flat final. We've established that. What else did this Dr. Mitchell teach you? And just like that, the conversation shifted. Clara began explaining the techniques Dr. Mitchell had developed for helping traumatized children, ways of creating safety, building trust, allowing them to process grief at their own pace. Sam listened intently, asking questions, making suggestions, fully engaged in a way that made Clara's heart swell. This was what partnership looked like. Not just sharing a home or a name, but sharing knowledge, sharing burdens, sharing the work of raising children who desperately needed both of them. By the time they finally got Will inside and warmed up, he had stopped crying and was clutching his rabbit with something like peace on his small face. He still hadn't spoken, but when Clara settled him into bed that night, he reached out and touched her cheek with one small hand. Soft, he whispered. It was the first word he had spoken directly to her. the first word he had spoken to anyone in months. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, sweetheart." Soft. Will's eyes drifted closed, and within moments he was asleep, his rabbit tucked under his chin. Clara stayed by his bed for a long time, watching him breathe, marveling at the trust this small, broken boy had placed in her. She didn't deserve it, not really. She was still hiding things, still carrying secrets that could destroy everything she was building here. But in that moment, watching Will sleep, she made a promise to herself. She would earn his trust. She would earn all of their trust. Whatever it took, whatever she had to overcome, she would become the mother these children needed. She owed them that much. She owed herself that much. When she finally left Will's room, she found Sam waiting in the hallway, his shoulder leaning against the wall, his eyes watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "He spoke to you." One word, but yes. Sam nodded slowly. "That's more than he's given anyone in 2 years. More than he's given me." Clara heard the pain beneath his words. "He loves you, Sam. He's just whatever happened to him, whatever broke inside him when he lost his parents. It takes time to heal. It doesn't mean he loves you any less." "I know." Sam's voice was rough. "It's just hard sometimes, watching him struggle and not being able to fix it. You can't fix everything yourself. That's why you brought me here, remember?" Sam was quiet for a moment. Then he did something that surprised her completely. He reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I'm glad you came, Clara. Whatever secrets you're still keeping, whatever you haven't told me yet, I'm glad you came." Clara's heart stuttered in her chest. "There are things I haven't told you, things that might change how you see me." "I doubt that." "Sam, whatever it is, it can wait." He released her hand, stepping back. "Right now, I've got a barn that needs checking, and you've got children who need tucking in. We'll talk when there's time." He was gone before she could respond, his footsteps heavy on the stairs. Clara stood alone in the hallway, her hand still tingling where he had touched it, her heart full of emotions she didn't know how to name. She was falling for him. This practical, kind, stubborn man who had taken in 5 orphan children and married a stranger to help him raise them. She was falling for him, and it terrified her more than anything else she had faced in her entire life. Because falling in love meant being vulnerable. It meant opening herself up to the possibility of being hurt again, rejected again, abandoned again. And Clara wasn't sure she could survive that. Not again. But as she went from room to room tucking in children who were slowly becoming hers, she realized something important. It was too late to protect her heart. She had already given it away. The letter arrived 6 weeks after the wedding, delivered by the mail rider who braved the winter roads once a week to bring news from the outside world. Clara recognized the handwriting immediately, and her blood turned to ice. Frederick Ashworth III. She stood in the kitchen, holding the envelope like it might explode in her hands, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Around her, the house bustled with its usual morning chaos. Rose was singing a nonsense song while she fed scraps to the chickens outside the window. The twins' laughter echoed from somewhere upstairs, where Ben was teaching Will a card game. Lottie sat at the table pretending to read while actually watching Clara with those sharp, suspicious eyes that missed nothing. "What's that?" Lottie asked. "Nothing." Clara forced her voice to remain steady. "Just a letter from back east." "From who?" "No one important." Lottie's eyes narrowed. "You're lying. Your face went all white when you saw it." Clara looked at the 9-year-old, momentarily impressed despite her panic. This child had survival instincts honed by loss and abandonment. She could smell deception the way a wolf could smell fear. "It's from someone I used to know," Clara said carefully. "Someone I hoped never to hear from again." Lottie considered this for a moment. "Someone bad. Someone who hurt me very much. Like how Mama and Papa dying hurt us." The question was so direct, so unexpectedly vulnerable, that Clara had to take a breath before answering. different kind of hurt. But yes, that deep. Lottie nodded slowly, something shifting in her expression. You gonna read it? I don't know yet. You should burn it. Lottie's voice was fierce. If someone hurts you that bad, you should burn everything they ever touched. That's what I'd do. Clara looked at this angry, frightened child who hid her broken heart behind walls of hostility and felt something crack open in her chest. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should. But she didn't burn it. Instead, she tucked it into her apron pocket and carried it with her throughout the day like a stone pressing against her hip. She felt its weight while she helped Abby with the laundry, while she worked with Will on his letters, while she bandaged a cut on Ben's hand from a careless moment with a kitchen knife. She felt it while Sam sat across from her at dinner, telling stories about his day in the fields, his eyes crinkling with warmth when she laughed at his jokes. She felt it while Rose crawled into her lap after supper, demanding a story about princesses and dragons and happy endings. She felt it while she lay awake in her empty bed that night, staring at the ceiling knowing that whatever was in that letter could destroy everything she had built here. Finally, when the house was silent and even the wind had died down outside, Clara lit a candle and opened the envelope. My dear Clara. The letter began, and even after 3 years, his condescending tone made her stomach turn. I trust this letter finds you well, though I confess some surprise that you have survived this long in such primitive conditions. Word has reached Philadelphia that you have married a rancher in Montana Territory, a man with 5 orphaned children no less. How very noble of you to find some useful purpose for yourself since other purposes are clearly beyond your capacity. Clara's hands trembled, but she forced herself to continue reading. I am writing to inform you that I will be traveling to Denver next month on business. It occurs to me that Silver Creek is not impossibly far from that city, and I find myself curious to see what has become of you. My new wife Priscilla has been most interested in your story. She finds it romantic in a tragic sort of way, the fallen woman finding redemption among savages and cowboys. I should warn you, dearest Clara, that I have been in correspondence with a Mrs. Helen Crawford of your new community. A charming woman who shares my concern for maintaining proper social standards, even in frontier territories. She has been most informative about your situation and most eager to learn about your past. I look forward to renewing our acquaintance. With fond regards, Frederick Ashworth III. Clara read the letter 3 times, her horror growing with each pass. Frederick was coming. Frederick had been writing to Helen Crawford. Frederick was going to tell everyone in Silver Creek about her past, about the scandal, about all the ugly rumors his family had spread to protect their precious reputation. And Helen Crawford, who had already made clear her disdain for Clara and her desire to see Sam married to her niece Elizabeth, would be only too happy to use that information to destroy Clara's place in this community. Clara pressed her hand against her mouth to stifle a sob. She had been so careful. She had come so far. She had finally found a place where she might belong, people who might love her, a man who looked at her like she was worth something. And now Frederick was going to take it all away. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat by the window watching the snow fall, thinking about all the ways her past could reach out and strangle her future. By morning, she had made a decision. She had to tell Sam everything. Before Frederick arrived, before Helen Crawford could poison the well with half-truths and outright lies. She had to tell him herself, and she had to trust that the man who had accepted her barrenness without flinching would accept this too. But finding time alone with Sam proved nearly impossible. The ranch demanded constant attention. The children needed supervision, and the winter weather created crisis after crisis that kept everyone running from dawn until well past dark. Every time Clara tried to pull Sam aside, something interrupted them. 3 days after the letter arrived, Clara was in the barn gathering eggs when she heard voices approaching. She recognized Helen Crawford's refined tones, immediately followed by Sam's deeper rumble. I simply think you should know what people are saying. Helen was saying. As a friend to your late brother's family, I feel it's my duty. With respect, ma'am, I don't put much stock in gossip. This isn't gossip, Mr. Holloway. This is documented fact. I've received letters from Philadelphia from people who knew your wife's family. The things they've told me are quite shocking. Clara's heart stopped. She pressed herself against the wall of the barn, hidden behind a stack of hay bales, hardly daring to breathe. What things? Sam's voice had gone flat dangerous. Well, I hardly like to repeat such indelicate matters, but since you insist. Helen's voice dripped with false reluctance. It seems your wife was engaged to a very prominent gentleman in Philadelphia. The engagement was broken off when certain facts about her character came to light. I know about the broken engagement. Clara told me herself. Did she tell you why it was broken? Did she tell you about the scandal that followed the rumors about her moral character? There was a long pause. What kind of rumors? The kind that drove her mother to an early grave from shame. The kind that made her own father disown her. Helen's voice softened to a poisonous whisper. The kind that suggests your mail-order bride may not be the virtuous woman she's pretending to be. Clara closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. This was it. This was the moment everything fell apart. Mrs. Crawford. Sam's voice was quiet, controlled, but there was an edge to it that Clara had never heard before. I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. Of course. Did you actually witness any of these supposed moral failings? Or are you just repeating gossip from people you've never met about a woman you don't know? Well, the letters were very specific. Letters from who? From the man who broke her engagement. From his family who might have their own reasons for spreading lies about a woman they wronged. Helen's composure cracked slightly. Mr. Holloway, I'm simply trying to protect you and those poor children from what? From a woman who has shown nothing but kindness and competence since she arrived. A woman who saved my nephew's life. A woman who has worked herself to exhaustion every single day, trying to care for 5 children who aren't even hers by blood. But the scandal. There is no scandal, Mrs. Crawford. There's just a woman who was treated badly by people who should have protected her, and who had the courage to start over somewhere new. Sam's voice hardened. And there's people like you who can't stand to see someone else happy, so you try to tear them down with rumors and innuendo. How dare you? I dare because those are my children in that house and Clara is my wife. Whatever happened in Philadelphia is none of my concern, and none of yours. If I hear that you've been spreading these stories around town, we're going to have a serious problem. Do you understand me? The silence that followed was deafening. Clara heard Helen's sharp intake of breath, then the rustle of skirts as she turned to leave. You'll regret this, Mr. Holloway. When the truth comes out, and it will come out, you'll wish you had listened to me. Good day, Mrs. Crawford. Clara heard footsteps retreating, then the creak of a buggy pulling away. She stayed hidden behind the hay bales, her whole body shaking with a mixture of relief and terror. Sam had defended her. Without hesitation, without doubt, he had defended her against accusations he didn't even know were partially true, and that made what she had to do even harder. She heard Sam's footsteps approaching the barn, heard him pause at the entrance. Clara, I know you're in here. I saw you come in earlier. She stepped out from behind the hay bales, not bothering to wipe the tears from her face. You heard? I heard. Sam's expression was unreadable as he studied her. Is it true? Any of it? Clara took a deep breath. Some of it. Not the way she made it sound, but yes. There was a scandal. There were rumors. What kind of rumors? The worst kind. Clara's voice broke. Frederick's family, when he broke our engagement, they couldn't just let me go quietly. They had to destroy me, make sure no one else would ever want me. So they spread stories. They said I had been improper, that I had done things that no decent woman would do. Sam's jaw tightened. Were the stories true? No. Clara met his eyes directly. I have never been with any man. I was engaged to Frederick, but I was raised to believe that such things waited for marriage. The only improper thing I ever did was get sick and lose the ability to bear children. Then why did they spread those lies? Because Frederick needed an excuse. He couldn't admit that he was abandoning me because I was barren. That would have made him look cruel and shallow. So his family invented a better story. They said I had trapped him, that I had lied about my virtue, that I was a fortune hunter who got what she deserved. Clara's voice rose with 3 years of suppressed rage and pain. They destroyed my reputation, drove my mother to her grave, and made my father so ashamed that he couldn't bear to look at me. And now Frederick is coming here. He wrote me a letter. He's been corresponding with Helen Crawford, telling her God knows what. He wants to finish what he started, Sam. He wants to make sure I have nothing, nowhere, no one. She was crying openly now, all her careful composure shattered. I should have told you sooner. I should have told you everything before we married, but I was so afraid, so desperate. I thought if I could just get far enough away, if I could just start over, maybe the past wouldn't follow me. But it always follows, doesn't it? The past always finds you. Sam stood very still throughout her confession, his expression never changing. When she finally stopped talking, when she had nothing left but tears and trembling, he spoke. When is he coming? Clara blinked. What? Frederick. When is he coming to Silver Creek? His letter said next month. He has business in Denver. Sam nodded slowly. All right. All right. Clara stared at him in disbelief. Sam, did you hear what I said? Everything I've built here, everything we've built, it's about to be destroyed. Frederick will tell everyone his version of events. Helen Crawford will make sure the whole territory knows. I'll be ruined all over again, and this time you and the children will be dragged down with me. Clara. Sam stepped forward and took her hands in his. His grip was warm, steady, grounding. Look at me. She raised her eyes to his face, expecting to see disappointment or anger or pity. Instead, she saw something that made her breath catch in her throat. Determination. Do you remember what I told you the night you arrived when you confessed about being barren? You said I wasn't broken. That's right. And do you remember what I said about Frederick? Clara's lips trembled. You said you'd break his jaw. I meant it. Sam's voice was quiet but fierce. That man hurt you. Deliberately, cruelly, for his own selfish purposes. He destroyed your life, your family, your good name. And now he's coming here to my home to try to do it again. He released one of her hands and cupped her face gently, his calloused thumb brushing away her tears. I'm not going to let that happen, Clara. I don't care what he says. I don't care what Helen Crawford says. I don't care what anyone says. You're my wife. You're the mother of my children. And I will protect you with everything I have. Clara's heart was pounding so hard she could barely think. Why would you do that for me? Sam was quiet for a moment, something shifting in his expression. Because I know what it's like to be judged for things that aren't your fault. Because I've watched you work yourself to the bone, caring for 5 children who aren't yours by blood. Because my nephew spoke his first words in 2 years to you. Because Rose lights up like Christmas morning every time you walk into a room. He paused, and when he continued, his voice was rougher than before. And because somewhere along the way, this arrangement stopped being about convenience for me. Somewhere along the way, it started being about you. Clara couldn't breathe. Sam, I know we agreed to keep this practical. I know you have every reason not to trust men, not to open your heart, not to believe anyone who makes promises. But I'm asking you to believe me now. He held her gaze with an intensity that made her tremble. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to abandon you. Whatever comes, we face it together. The tears Clara had been fighting spilled over again, but this time they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of something she had stopped believing in years ago. Hope. I don't deserve this, she whispered. I don't deserve you. You deserve more than this. More than a broken-down ranch and a gruff rancher and 5 children who make too much noise and too much mess. Sam's voice cracked slightly. But this is what I have to offer. This is all I am, and I'm asking if it's enough." Clara looked at this man, this good, kind, stubborn man, who had seen her at her worst and hadn't flinched, who had defended her without knowing if she deserved defending, who was offering her not just protection, but something far more precious. He was offering her his heart. And for the first time in 3 years, Clara felt brave enough to offer hers in return. "It's enough," she said, her voice breaking. "It's more than enough. It's everything." Sam pulled her into his arms, holding her close against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat strong and steady, could feel the warmth of his body seeping into her cold bones. For a long moment they simply stood there wrapped in each other, while snow fell silently outside, and the world narrowed to just the two of them. "So what do we do now?" Clara asked when she finally pulled back to look at him. "Frederick will be here in a few weeks. Helen Crawford is already poisoning people against me. How do we fight that?" Sam's expression hardened with purpose. "We tell the truth. Before they can spread their lies, we tell everyone in Silver Creek exactly what happened. We don't hide, don't cower, don't let them control the story. But if people know I was involved in a scandal, people in Montana care about what you do, not what you're rumored to have done. They've seen you help Dr. Brennan with the sick. They've seen you take care of 5 children who lost their parents. They've seen who you really are." Sam squeezed her hands. "That matters more than any gossip from people 2,000 miles away." Clara wanted to believe him. More than anything, she wanted to believe that she could finally stop running, stop hiding, stop being ashamed of things that weren't her fault. "There's one more thing," she said quietly. "Something I haven't told you yet." Sam waited, his expression patient. Clara slowly reached for the buttons of her dress, her hands trembling. "The accident that made me barren. It wasn't just it left, more than just internal damage." She unfastened enough buttons to reveal the top of the scar that ran across her abdomen, the ugly ridge of raised tissue that Frederick had called grotesque. "This is why he really left me," she whispered. "He could have handled a wife who couldn't bear children. His family had money. They could have adopted or found some other arrangement. But he couldn't handle this. Couldn't handle looking at me and seeing this." She watched Sam's face, waiting for the disgust, the revulsion, the rejection she had seen in Frederick's eyes 3 years ago. Instead, Sam reached out and touched the scar gently, reverently, like it was something precious rather than something shameful. "Does it hurt?" Clara blinked, thrown off by the unexpected question. "Not anymore. It's just ugly. It's proof that you survived." Sam's voice was firm. "It's proof that you went through something terrible and came out the other side. There's nothing ugly about that." He released her and stepped back, giving her space to refasten her buttons, but his eyes never left hers. "I've got scars too, Clara. Every person who's lived a real life has scars. They're not something to be ashamed of. They're something to be proud of." Clara felt something shift inside her, something that had been clenched tight for 3 years, finally beginning to loosen. This man saw her scars, both visible and invisible, and he wasn't running away. He was standing right there, steady as a rock, offering her everything she had been afraid to hope for. "I love you," she whispered, the words escaping before she could stop them. "I know we agreed this was just an arrangement, and I know it's only been a few weeks, and I know I have no right to say this, but I love you, Sam Holloway. I love your kindness and your stubbornness, and the way you are with those children. I love the life we're building here, and I'm terrified of losing it." Sam was quiet for a long moment, and Clara felt her heart plummeting. She had said too much, gone too far, ruined everything. Then he smiled, a real smile that transformed his whole face, and Clara forgot how to breathe. "I've been wanting to say that for weeks," he said softly. "Just didn't know if you were ready to hear it." He pulled her close again, and this time when their lips met, it wasn't a chaste peck on the cheek. It was a real kiss, deep and warm, and full of promise. Clara melted into him, into the strength of his arms, and the gentleness of his touch, and the absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. When they finally broke apart, both breathless Sam rested his forehead against hers. "Whatever happens with Frederick, whatever Helen Crawford tries to do, we face it together. Agreed." "Agreed." "Good." He kissed her once more softly. "Now let's go tell those children that supper's going to be late because their uncle needs to court his wife properly." Clara laughed a real laugh that bubbled up from somewhere she had forgotten existed. "Court me properly? We're already married." "Exactly. I did everything backwards. Time to fix that." He took her hand and led her out of the barn into the cold winter air, toward the warm house where 5 children waited and a future stretched out before them, full of challenges and possibilities. Clara looked back once at the barn, where she had finally told the truth and been accepted anyway. Then she turned her face forward toward whatever came next. She was done running from her past. It was time to start fighting for her future. The blizzard hit 3 days before Frederick was scheduled to arrive, and it brought with it a crisis that would test everything Clara and Sam had built together. It started with Rose waking in the middle of the night burning with fever. Clara heard the small whimper from across the hall and was out of bed before she fully registered what had woken her. She found Rose tangled in sweat-soaked sheets, her golden curls plastered to her forehead, her small body shaking with chills, despite the heat radiating from her skin. "Mama." Rose's voice was barely a whisper, her eyes glassy and unfocused. "Mama, I don't feel good." Clara's medical training kicked in immediately. She checked Rose's throat, found it angry and swollen. She felt the glands in her neck, found them hard and enlarged. She noted the faint rash beginning to spread across Rose's chest. Scarlet fever, the same disease that had killed dozens of children across the territory that winter. The same disease that had no cure, only careful nursing and prayer. Clara's blood turned to ice, but her hands remained steady. She couldn't panic. She couldn't fall apart. Rose needed her strong. "Sam!" Her voice cut through the silent house. "Sam, wake up!" He was beside her in moments, his face going pale when he saw Rose's condition. "What is it? What's wrong?" "Scarlet fever. I'm almost certain." Clara was already mentally cataloging what she would need. "We have to isolate her from the other children immediately. This spreads like wildfire." Sam's jaw tightened, but he didn't waste time on questions or fear. "Tell me what to do." "Wake Abby. Have her gather the other children in the boys' room and keep them there. No one comes near Rose's room until I say so. Then I need you to ride into town and bring Dr. Brennan. I can start treatment, but I need supplies I don't have here." Sam hesitated for just a moment, his eyes on Rose's small form. "Will she be all right?" Clara couldn't lie to him. "I don't know. Scarlet fever kills children, Sam. Strong children, healthy children. But Rose is a fighter, and we caught it early. That counts for something." He nodded once, pressed a kiss to Rose's burning forehead, and was gone. The next few hours blurred together in Clara's memory. She worked with focused intensity, sponging Rose's fever down, forcing small sips of water between cracked lips, applying cool compresses to the rash that was spreading across her small body. She talked constantly, keeping her voice calm and soothing, even as her heart hammered with terror. "You're going to be all right, sweetheart. Mama's here. Mama's not going anywhere." Rose drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes crying out for her real mama, sometimes reaching for Clara with desperate hands, sometimes lying so still that Clara had to check repeatedly to make sure she was still breathing. Dr. Ruth Brennan arrived just as dawn was breaking, her face grim but competent. She examined Rose quickly and confirmed Clara's diagnosis. "You've done everything right," she told Clara. "The fever needs to break within the next 24 hours, or we're in serious trouble. Keep doing what you're doing. I'll stay as long as I can, but I have 3 other families with sick children in town." "Go." Clara's voice was steady despite her exhaustion. "I can handle this. Those families need you." Dr. Brennan studied her for a moment. "You have real skill, Clara. Have you ever considered formal medical training? Now isn't the time for that conversation. No. But when this is over, we should talk. Dr. Brennan gathered her bag. I'll check back tomorrow if the roads are passable. Send someone if she gets worse. After the doctor left, Clara settled in for the long vigil. Sam tried to convince her to rest to let him take over for a few hours, but she refused to leave Rose's side. I can't, she told him, her voice cracking. If something happens while I'm not here, I'll never forgive myself. Sam didn't argue. Instead, he brought her coffee and food she barely touched, stationed himself in the doorway, where he could watch both Clara and Rose, and kept the other children away, despite their increasingly frantic demands to see their baby sister. The day passed in a haze of fear and exhaustion. Rose's fever climbed higher, then plateaued at a level that terrified Clara. The rash spread until it covered most of her small body, angry and red against her pale skin. Her breathing became labored, each inhale a struggle that made Clara's chest ache in sympathy. As darkness fell again, Clara began to pray. She hadn't prayed in years, not since the accident that had stolen her ability to bear children, not since she had decided that God had abandoned her along with everyone else. But sitting beside Rose's bed, watching this precious child fight for her life, Clara found words she had forgotten she knew. Please, she whispered. Please don't take her. Not this one. She's only 4 years old. She hasn't had a chance to live yet. Please. The hours crawled by. Outside, the blizzard howled against the windows, piling snow against the house in drifts that would take days to clear. Inside, the only sounds were Rose's labored breathing and Clara's endless, desperate prayers. It was just past midnight when Rose's fever finally broke. Clara felt it happen, felt the moment when the burning heat beneath her palm began to cool. She checked Rose's forehead, her neck, her chest, hardly daring to believe what her hands were telling her. Sam! Her voice was a croak. Sam, come here. He was beside her instantly, his face haggard with worry. What is it? Is she? The fever broke. She's going to be all right. Sam stared at her for a moment, uncomprehending. Then his legs seemed to give out, and he sank to his knees beside the bed, his forehead pressed against Rose's hand, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Clara had never seen him cry before. This strong, steady man, who had held their family together through everything, finally allowing himself to break down now that the danger had passed. She reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder, offering what comfort she could. She's going to be all right, she repeated. She's going to be fine. Sam raised his head, his eyes wet, and looked at Clara with an expression that made her breath catch. You saved her life. I just did what needed to be done. No. Sam's voice was fierce. You stayed with her for almost 2 days straight. You didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't leave her side for a single minute. You fought for her like she was your own flesh and blood. She is mine. Clara's voice broke. Maybe not by blood, but she's mine. They're all mine. I would die for any of them, Sam. I would do anything to keep them safe. Sam reached up and cupped her face in his hands, his calloused thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized she was crying. I know you would. That's why I love you. He kissed her, then a kiss that tasted of tears and exhaustion and overwhelming relief. When they broke apart, Clara found herself laughing weakly, deliriously, all the tension of the past 2 days finally releasing. We should probably tell the children their sister is going to live. Sam grinned, looking younger than she had ever seen him. Probably should. The reunion was chaotic and beautiful. Abby burst into tears of relief. Ben stood very still, his jaw working as he fought to maintain his 12-year-old dignity while his eyes shone with unshed tears. Lottie pushed past everyone to throw herself beside Rose's bed. Don't you ever do that again. Lottie ordered her baby sister, her voice fierce. You scared us half to death. If you die, I'll never forgive you. Rose, weak but coherent for the first time in 2 days, managed a tiny smile. "I won't die. Mama Clara won't let me." Mama Clara. It was the first time any of the children except Rose had called her that. Clara looked at Lottie expecting the usual hostility, but the 9-year-old just shrugged. "She saved Rosie's life," Lottie said, as if that explained everything. "Guess that means she's earned the title." Clara felt fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. She tried to speak to thank Lottie for this unexpected acceptance, but her voice wouldn't cooperate. Then she felt a small hand slip into hers. Will. The 6-year-old, who hadn't spoken more than a handful of words in 2 years, was standing beside her, his rabbit tucked under one arm, his other hand clasped firmly in hers. "Thank you," he said. His voice was rusty from disuse, barely above a whisper, but the words were clear. "Thank you for saving Rosie. Thank you for staying." Clara dropped to her knees and pulled him into a hug, her body shaking with sobs. "I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. I promise. I'm not ever going anywhere." Will hugged her back, his small arms surprisingly strong. And for the first time since she had arrived in Montana, Clara felt like she truly belonged to this family. The blizzard trapped them in the house for another 3 days, during which Rose slowly regained her strength, and Clara finally allowed herself to rest. Sam insisted she take to their bed now, not just hers, and sleep while he and Abby managed the household. She slept for 14 hours straight, and when she woke, she found Sam sitting in a chair beside the bed, watching her with an expression of such tenderness that it made her chest ache. "How do you feel?" "Human again." Clara stretched, wincing at the stiffness in her muscles. "How are the children?" "Rose is demanding breakfast and asking when she can go outside. I'd say she's recovering well." Clara laughed. "That sounds like Rose." Sam's expression sobered. "Clara, there's something I need to tell you." Her stomach clenched. "What is it?" "The blizzard closed the roads for almost a week. Nothing got through, not mail, not travelers, nothing." He paused. "Frederick's letter said he'd be here by now. If he tried to come during the storm..." Clara understood immediately. He might not have made it. Or he might have turned back. Or he might be waiting in Denver for the roads to clear. Sam took her hand. "Either way, we have a little more time. Time to prepare to decide how we want to handle this." Clara considered this for a moment. A week ago, the thought of Frederick's arrival had filled her with terror. Now, after everything that had happened after saving Rose's life and earning the children's acceptance and building something real with Sam, she felt differently. "I'm not afraid of him anymore." Sam raised an eyebrow. No, he can come. He can say whatever he wants. He can try to destroy me all over again." Clara's voice was steady, strong. "But I'm not the same person who ran away from Philadelphia 3 years ago. I'm not alone anymore. I have a family, a home, people who love me. Nothing he says can take that away." Sam squeezed her hand. "That's my girl." The roads cleared 2 days later, and with them came news from town. Dr. Brennan sent word that the scarlet fever outbreak was subsiding with only 2 deaths among the children who had been infected. A miracle, she called it, given how deadly the disease could be. And there was other news. A fancy Eastern gentleman had arrived in Denver just before the blizzard hit, asking questions about Silver Creek and the Holloway Ranch. He had been stranded in the city during the storm and was expected to arrive within the week. Frederick was coming. Clara received this news calmly, though her heart beat a little faster. She had meant what she told Sam. She wasn't afraid anymore. But that didn't mean she was looking forward to facing the man who had destroyed her life. The day before Frederick was expected to arrive, Clara gathered all 5 children in the parlor. Sam stood beside her, his hand warm on her shoulder, lending her strength. "I need to tell you all something," Clara began. "Something about my past, about why I came to Montana, about who I was before I became your mother." The children listened in silence as Clara told her story. She told them about Frederick, about the accident, about the lies his family had spread to destroy her reputation. She told them about running away, about answering Sam's advertisement, about being so desperate for a fresh start that she had been willing to marry a stranger. She told them about the fear she had carried every day, the fear that they would find out and reject her, the fear that she wasn't good enough to be their mother. When she finished, Abby spoke first. "That man sounds awful." "He is, and he's coming here to our home." "Yes." Abby's expression hardened with a fierceness that reminded Clara of Sam. "What do you need us to do?" Clara blinked. "What?" "You're our mother," Abby said simply. "You saved Rose's life. You helped Will find his voice again. You've taken care of all of us better than anyone since our real parents died. If this Frederick person thinks he can come here and hurt you, he's got another thing coming." Ben nodded in agreement. "She's right. We're Holloways. We protect our own." "I can bite him if he's mean to you." Rose offered helpfully from her nest of blankets on the sofa. "I still have all my baby teeth and they're very sharp." Clara laughed despite herself. "I appreciate the offer, sweetheart, but that won't be necessary." Lottie had been silent throughout Clara's story, her expression unreadable. Now she stood up and walked over to Clara, her green eyes intense. "You know what I said before, about burning things from people who hurt you?" "I remember." Lottie reached into her pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. Clara recognized it immediately. Frederick's letter. "I found this in your apron," Lottie admitted without a trace of shame. "I read it. He sounds like a real snake." "Charlotte, I think we should burn it, together, like a ceremony or something, to show that his words don't have power over you anymore." Clara stared at this fierce, wounded child who had refused to accept her for weeks, who had tested her at every turn, who was now offering her a gift more precious than she could have imagined. Acceptance, protection, family. "I think that's a wonderful idea," Clara whispered. They gathered around the fireplace, all 7 of them. Clara held the letter over the flames, feeling its weight in her hand one last time. "This letter represents everything I've been afraid of," she said quietly. "The past I ran from, the lies told about me, the shame I've carried for 3 years." She looked around at the faces of her family. Sam's steady presence beside her, the children gathered close. "But I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not ashamed. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She dropped the letter into the fire. The flames caught it immediately, curling the edges, turning the words to ash. The children cheered, and Rose clapped her hands, and even Will made a sound that might have been approval. Clara watched the letter burn and felt something inside her release. All the fear, all the shame, all the years of hiding and running and pretending to be someone she wasn't. It was finally over. She was finally free. "He's still coming, though," Ben pointed out practically. "Frederick, what happens when he actually gets here?" Sam put his arm around Clara's shoulders. "Then we face him together, all of us. And we show him that whatever power he thought he had over Clara, it's gone now." Clara leaned into her husband's embrace, surrounded by the children who had become hers, and felt a peace she had never known before. Let Frederick come. Let him say whatever he wanted. She was Clara Holloway now, wife and mother and healer, and nothing he could do would ever take that away from her. Frederick Ashworth III arrived in Silver Creek on a Tuesday afternoon, stepping off the stagecoach in a fine wool coat that was entirely unsuited for Montana winters. Clara watched him from the window of the general store, where she had been purchasing supplies with Abby, and felt her stomach clench with old familiar dread. He looked exactly the same. Tall, handsome, impeccably dressed. The same cold blue eyes, the same aristocratic bearing, the same smile that never quite reached his face. "That's him?" Abby asked quietly. "That's the one who hurt you?" "Yes." Abby studied Frederick with the assessing gaze she usually reserved for livestock at auction. "He doesn't look like much." Despite everything, Clara laughed. "He's not. I just didn't know that back then. Frederick spotted her through the window almost immediately. His smile widened, taking on that predatory edge she remembered all too well. He started toward the store. "Should we leave?" Abby asked. Clara straightened her shoulders. "No, I'm done running." The bell above the door chimed as Frederick entered, bringing with him a gust of cold air and the scent of expensive cologne. He removed his hat with a flourish. "Clara, my dear Clara, how rustic you've become." "Frederick." Clara kept her voice neutral. "I received your letter." "Yes, I imagined you would." He glanced around the store with obvious disdain. "So this is where you've landed. A general store in a town that barely qualifies as a town. How far the mighty have fallen." "I haven't fallen. I've risen." Frederick laughed the same condescending laugh that had once made Clara feel small and worthless. "Is that what you're telling yourself? That marrying a cowboy and raising someone else's brats is rising? Those children are mine." Clara's voice hardened. "And my husband is 10 times the man you'll ever be." Something flickered in Frederick's eyes. Surprise, perhaps. The Clara he had known would never have spoken to him that way. "I see Montana has made you bold. How unfortunate. I was hoping we could have a civilized conversation." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I've been speaking with Mrs. Crawford. Such a charming woman. She's very concerned about you, Clara. About the lies you've been telling these good people." "I haven't told any lies." "Haven't you?" Frederick's smile turned cruel. "Did you tell your rancher husband about what really happened in Philadelphia? About the scandal? About why your own father disowned you?" "Yes." Frederick blinked. "What?" "I told him everything. The accident, the surgery, the lies your family spread. All of it." Clara met his eyes without flinching. "He knows exactly who I am and what happened to me. And he married me anyway." For the first time, Frederick looked uncertain. This wasn't going according to plan. The Clara he had destroyed 3 years ago would have been terrified, begging him not to reveal her secrets. This Clara was something different entirely. "He won't stand by you when he learns the truth about your moral character." "There is no truth about my moral character. There are only lies your family invented to protect your reputation." Clara stepped closer to him, her voice dropping to a fierce whisper. "Did you think I would spend the rest of my life hiding from what you did to me? Did you think I would let you hold that power over me forever?" "Clara." "I'm not finished." Her eyes blazed. "You took everything from me. My engagement, my reputation, my family, my home. You drove my mother to her grave with your lies. You made my father so ashamed he couldn't bear to look at me. And then you came here to the life I've built from the ashes of what you destroyed, thinking you could do it all over again." She smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. "You were wrong." The door to the store opened again, and Sam walked in, followed by old Jacob Moreno and 2 other ranchers from neighboring properties. They arranged themselves behind Clara in a way that was clearly deliberate, a wall of solid frontier muscle between her and Frederick. "This the fellow causing trouble?" Sam asked casually, though his eyes were hard as flint. "Mr. Ashworth was just leaving," Clara said. Frederick's face had gone pale. He was accustomed to dealing with society, ladies and gentlemen, people bound by rules of propriety and social convention. These rough Western men with their calloused hands and weathered faces operated by different rules entirely. "I was simply paying a social call," Frederick said stiffly. "No need for hostility." "Social call." Sam nodded slowly. "That why you've been writing letters to Helen Crawford for months, spreading rumors about my wife trying to destroy her reputation in her new home?" "I have no idea what you're talking about." "That's funny, because Mrs. Crawford came by yesterday crying and apologizing for everything she'd said about Clara. Seems she did some thinking during the blizzard, preyed on it, decided she'd been wrong to judge someone she didn't know based on gossip from someone she'd never met." Frederick's face went from pale to flushed. "That woman assured me she would—" "Would what?" Clara interrupted. "Help you destroy me. Sorry to disappoint you, But people in Montana have better things to do than participate in your petty revenge schemes." She stepped closer to Frederick, close enough to see the fear beginning to dawn in his eyes. "Go home, Frederick. Go back to Philadelphia, and your fancy wife, and your fancy life. There's nothing for you here. Whatever you hope to accomplish, whatever satisfaction you thought you'd get from seeing me suffer, it's not going to happen. You can't speak to me like this." "I just did." Clara's voice was calm, certain. "And if you ever contact me again, if you ever try to interfere in my life again, I will make sure everyone in Philadelphia society knows exactly what kind of man you are. The kind who abandons his fiancée because of a medical condition she couldn't control. The kind who spreads lies about an innocent woman to protect his own reputation. The kind who can't stand to see someone he hurt find happiness without him." Frederick stared at her, and Clara saw the moment he realized he had lost. Whatever power he had once held over her was gone. She was no longer the broken woman who had fled Philadelphia in disgrace. She was someone new, someone stronger, someone he couldn't touch. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, it is." Clara turned her back on him, the ultimate dismissal. "Sam, would you mind escorting Mr. Ashworth to the stagecoach station? I believe the next coach leaves in an hour, and he'll want to be on it." Sam smiled a smile that promised violence if Frederick gave him any reason at all. "Be my pleasure." Clara watched them go, Frederick flanked by Sam and the other ranchers, and felt the last chains of her past falling away. She had faced her demon and won, not through violence or revenge, but through the simple power of refusing to be afraid anymore. Abby appeared at her elbow. "That was amazing. You were like one of those warrior queens from the history books." Clara laughed shakily. "I didn't feel like a warrior queen. I felt terrified. But you didn't show it. You stood there, and you fought back, and you won." Abby's voice was awed. "I want to be like that someday, strong like that." Clara put her arm around her stepdaughter. "You already are, sweetheart. You've been strong since the day your parents died. You held your family together when most girls your age would have fallen apart. That's real strength." Abby leaned into her embrace, and Clara felt the last of the girl's walls crumbling. This child, who had been so careful not to love her, so afraid of being hurt again, was finally letting herself trust. "Can we go home now?" Abby asked quietly. "I want to tell the others what happened, Ben especially. He was worried about you." "Yes." Clara smiled. "Let's go home." Home. Such a simple word, but it meant everything now. Home was the ranch with its drafty windows and cramped rooms. Home was 5 children who called her mother. Home was Sam, who had stood beside her without hesitation, who had loved her despite knowing all her secrets and scars. Home was where she belonged, and nothing not Frederick Ashworth or Helen Crawford or anyone else could ever take that away from her again. Spring came slowly to Montana, melting the snow in patches and turning the frozen ground to mud. Clara stood on the porch of the Holloway Ranch, watching the children play in the yard, and marveled at how much had changed in the 4 months since she had stepped off that train into a blizzard. Rose was chasing Will through puddles, her golden curls bouncing her laughter, ringing across the valley like bells. Will was laughing too. Actually laughing, his voice growing stronger every day as he gradually found the words that had been locked inside him for so long. Ben sat on the fence reading a book, but Clara noticed how he looked up every few minutes to check on his siblings, the protective instinct never quite leaving him, even as he learned to be a child again. Lottie was helping Abby hang laundry, the 2 sisters working together with an ease that would have been impossible months ago. Beautiful sight, ain't it? Clara turned to find Sam beside her, his shoulder brushing against hers in the casual intimacy they had developed. She leaned into him, drawing warmth from his solid presence. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Sam wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her close. "You know, when I put that advertisement in the paper, I was just hoping for someone who could cook and clean and keep the children out of trouble. Never imagined I'd end up with all this. All what? This. He gestured at the scene before them. A real family. Kids who are healing. A wife I actually love instead of just tolerate. He pressed a kiss to her temple. You changed everything, Clara. Everything. Clara felt tears prickle at her eyes, the happy kind she still wasn't entirely used to. You changed everything for me, too. You gave me a home when I thought I'd never have one. You loved me when I thought I was unlovable. You were never unlovable. You just hadn't found the right people yet. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching their children until Abby called out that dinner was ready. The evening meal had become Clara's favorite time of day, when all 7 of them gathered around the table and shared stories about what they had done, what they had learned, what they were hoping for. Tonight, Ben announced that he wanted to become a doctor someday. Like you, Mama Clara, I want to help people who are sick. Clara's heart swelled. I think you'd make a wonderful Dr. Ben. Dr. Brennan said I could start helping at her clinic this summer. He continued eagerly. Just small things, cleaning instruments and organizing supplies. But it's a start. It's more than a start. It's the beginning of something important. Lottie, not to be outdone, declared that she was going to be a horse trainer. Old Jacob says I have a gift. He says I understand horses better than most grown men. That's because you're as stubborn as they are. Will piped up, then clapped his hand over his mouth, surprised by his own boldness. The table went silent for a moment. Then Lottie burst out laughing, and everyone joined in the sound, filling the small farmhouse with warmth and joy. Will made a joke, Rose announced gleefully. Will talked and made a joke. Will's cheeks flushed red, but he was smiling, really smiling in a way Clara hadn't seen since she arrived. She reached over and squeezed his hand. That was a very good joke, sweetheart. After dinner, while Abby and Lottie cleaned up and Ben took the younger children upstairs for bed, Sam caught Clara's hand and led her out to the porch. The evening air was cool but not cold, carrying the scent of spring growth and new beginnings. I have something for you, Sam said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small box, weathered with age. Inside was a ring, simple but beautiful, a gold band with a small diamond that caught the fading light. This was my grandmother's, then my mother's, then Lydia's. Sam's voice grew rough. I wasn't sure I'd ever give it to anyone again, but you've earned it, Clara. You've earned everything I have to give. Clara stared at the ring, her throat tight with emotion. Sam, you already gave me a ring, when we got married. That was a practical ring for a practical marriage. This one is different. He took her hand and slid the ring onto her finger, right next to the plain band she already wore. This one is because I love you. Because you're not just my wife in name anymore. You're my wife in every way that matters. Clara threw her arms around his neck and kissed him, pouring all her love and gratitude into that single moment of connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Sam rested his forehead against hers. There's something else I want to talk to you about. What is it? Dr. Brennan came to see me yesterday. Said she's getting too old to handle all the medical work in the territory by herself. Said she needs a partner, someone she can train properly, someone who can take over when she's ready to retire. Clara's heart began to race. Sam. She wants you, Clara. She says you have more natural talent than any physician she's ever worked with. She wants to sponsor you for formal training, help you get certified as a real doctor. Clara couldn't speak. Her dream, the dream she had never dared to voice, was being offered to her like a gift. I know it would be hard, Sam continued. You'd have to study, take examinations, travel to Denver for some of the training. But the children are older now. Abby can manage the house. I can handle the ranch. And there are so many people in this territory who need help, Clara. People who might die without proper medical care. You would support this, me becoming a doctor? Sam cupped her face in his hands, his eyes fierce with conviction. I would support anything that makes you happy. Anything that lets you use the gifts God gave you. You were meant for more than just keeping house and raising children, Clara. You were meant to heal people. Clara felt tears streaming down her face, but she was laughing too, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. Yes, yes, I want to do this. I want to become a doctor. Sam grinned. I figured you might. Dr. Brennan's expecting you at her clinic tomorrow morning to start. Clara kissed him again, then pulled back with a thought. The children. We should tell them together. Already did. Sam's grin widened. They're inside pretending to be asleep, waiting to congratulate you. As if on cue, the door burst open, and 5 children spilled onto the porch, all talking at once. We're so proud of you, Mama Clara. Ben says you'll be the best doctor in the whole territory. Can I help you with the sick people? I'm very good at making people feel better. Will you still have time to read us stories? Clara gathered them all into her arms, laughing and crying at the same time, surrounded by the family she had never dared to hope for. Rose climbed into her lap. Will pressed against her side. Lottie and Ben hung over her shoulders, and Abby stood slightly apart, watching with an expression of deep contentment. I love you all so much, Clara managed through her tears. Every single one of you. We love you too, Mama Clara, Abby said softly. We're the luckiest family in Montana. 2 years passed like a dream. Clara completed her medical training, passing her examinations with the highest marks in her class. She became Dr. Clara Holloway, the second female physician and Montana Territory partner to Dr. Ruth Brennan, and healer to hundreds of families across the region. The children grew and flourished. Abby, now 17, had begun courting a young man from a neighboring ranch, a serious, steady fellow who reminded Clara of Sam. Ben was apprenticing at the clinic, his talent for medicine proving every bit as strong as Clara had suspected. Lottie had indeed become the finest horse trainer in the county, her fierce spirit finally channeled into something productive. Will talked constantly, now making up for all the silent years, his chatter filling the house with noise and life. And Rose, sweet Rose, remained the sunshine of the family, spreading joy wherever she went. The ranch prospered under Sam's careful management. They had expanded twice, buying land from neighbors who were moving on building their small homestead into something substantial and secure. The Holloway name meant something in Silver Creek, now a name associated with hard work, integrity, and compassion. Helen Crawford had moved away the spring after Frederick's visit, unable to face the community she had tried to turn against Clara. Frederick himself had faded into obscurity, his fancy life in Philadelphia continuing without any further attempt to interfere with Clara's happiness. Clara's father had written once a stiff formal letter expressing regret for how things had ended between them. Clara had written back equally formal, accepting his apology, but making clear that her life was in Montana now. They exchanged occasional letters after that, slowly rebuilding a relationship that would never be what it once was, but was better than nothing. On the second anniversary of Clara's arrival in Silver Creek, the family gathered for a celebration dinner. The table was crowded now, with Abby's young man joining them, and Dr. Brennan and old Jacob Moreno and several other friends and neighbors who had become like extended family. Sam stood to make a toast, his glass raised high. 2 years ago, a stranger stepped off a train in the middle of a blizzard. She was scared and alone, and carrying secrets she thought would destroy her. She didn't know what she was walking into, and honestly, neither did I. He looked at Clara, his eyes soft with love. But that stranger became my wife. She became a mother to 5 children who desperately needed one. She became a healer to this entire territory. She became the heart of this family and this community. His voice grew rough with emotion. I put an advertisement in a newspaper because I was desperate. I got a miracle instead. To Clara, the best thing that ever happened to any of us. To Clara. The table echoed, glasses raised. Clara stood to respond, looking around at all the faces she loved. When I got on that train in Philadelphia, I was running away. Running from shame, from rejection, from a life that had fallen apart. I thought I was coming to Montana to hide, to survive, to just get through whatever years I had left. She reached down and took Sam's hand. I didn't expect to find love. I didn't expect to find a family. I didn't expect to find my calling. I didn't expect to find myself. Her gaze moved across the children, each one precious, each one a gift. But that's what I found here. All of it. Everything I thought I had lost, everything I thought I could never have. It was waiting for me in this place, with these people. Clara raised her glass. To family. Not the kind you're born into, but the kind you choose. The kind that chooses you back. To family, the table responded. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the children were in bed, Clara and Sam sat together on the porch, as they had done countless times over the past 2 years. The stars blazed overhead, more stars than Clara had ever seen in Philadelphia, and the mountains rose around them like silent guardians. Any regrets? Sam asked, his arm around her shoulders. Clara considered the question seriously. She thought about the scar across her abdomen, the one that had once seemed like a mark of shame. She thought about the children she would never bear from her own body. She thought about the life she had left behind, the society that had rejected her, the people who had called her damaged goods. Then she thought about Will's laughter, about Rose calling her mama, about Lottie finally learning to trust, about Ben and his dreams of becoming a doctor, about Abby growing into a remarkable young woman. She thought about the patients she had helped, the lives she had saved, the difference she was making in this territory. She thought about Sam, steady and strong, loving her exactly as she was. No, she said firmly. Not a single one. Sam pressed a kiss to her hair. Good answer. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sounds of the night. The rustle of wind through the pines, the distant lowing of cattle, the peaceful breathing of a house full of sleeping children. You know, Clara said eventually, I used to think I was broken, that something fundamental was wrong with me because I couldn't have children of my own. I thought that made me less than other women, unworthy of love, unworthy of family. And now I know that was never true. Family isn't about blood. It isn't about biology. It's about showing up every day, choosing to love, even when it's hard, building something together that's bigger than any of us alone. She turned to look at Sam, her eyes shining with certainty. I have 5 children. 5 beautiful, complicated, wonderful children. I didn't birth them, but I love them. I didn't make them, but I'm helping shape who they become. That's motherhood. That's family. That's everything. Sam pulled her closer. You're the best mother those children could have asked for. And you're the best husband I could have asked for. Clara smiled. Even if you did buy me from a newspaper. Sam laughed. Best investment I ever made. Clara laughed with him, the sound carrying across the quiet valley, mingling with the wind and the stars and the vast Montana sky. She leaned her head against his shoulder and breathed in the scent of home. Home. Family. Love. Purpose. 4 years ago, she had been a broken woman fleeing Philadelphia in disgrace, carrying a secret she thought would destroy any chance of happiness. She had been convinced that her inability to bear children made her worthless, that her scars made her unlovable, that her past would always define her future. She had been wrong about all of it. The mail-order bride, who couldn't bear children, had become a mother to 5. The scandalous woman from Philadelphia had become a respected doctor. The frightened stranger had become the heart of a family and a community. And the man who had answered his own desperate prayer with a newspaper advertisement had become the love of her life. Clara Holloway closed her eyes and let the peace of the moment wash over her. Tomorrow there would be patience to see children, to raise a ranch, to run a life to live. There would be challenges and setbacks and moments of doubt, but there would also be love. There would always be love. And that, Clara knew now, was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. She was Dr. Clara Holloway, wife of Samuel Holloway, mother of 5, healer to a territory, and the living proof that broken things could be made whole again. Not by hiding their cracks, but by filling them with gold. Her scars told her story. Her choices defined her future. Her family gave her strength. And nothing, not the past, not the doubters, not the cruelty of small-minded people, could ever take that away. The woman who had once believed she was damaged goods had discovered the truth that would guide the rest of her life. She had never been broken at all. She had simply been waiting to bloom. Up next, you've got 2 more incredible stories waiting for you right on your screen. If this one touched your heart, you won't want to miss what's coming. Just click and discover what happens when love finds you in the most unexpected places. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you never miss an upload from us. We'll see you in the next story.